Today we're going to practice graphing with rational numbers. It's literally the exact same thing we've been doing, except now we can include fractions and decimals. You may see some smaller decimals or fractions, but today we're just going to focus on the 1/2. Those should be pretty simple. To get started, let's look at your notebook. This paper should be glued into it. And let's practice graphing these together. So I'm going to start right here with G. Make it a color though. So we're going to always remember start at the origin, which is 0, 0. I'm going to go left 2 whole jumps and then a half jump. So 1, 2 wholes and then a half, because 2 and a half is in the middle of 2 and 3. And then 3 is positive. So that means you're going up, 1, 2, 3. You're going to put your dot and label it G. And you should be following along on this paper as well. All right. Now let's look at the next one. Let's look at R. Now, multiple ways I could look at this one. I could convert it into a mixed number and say that that is -2 1/2, or I can leave it as 5 half jumps. Either way will work, so I'll explain what I mean. So R, start at 0, 0, we go 1 jump to the right, and if I convert it, negative means down, so I'm going down 1, 2 whole jumps, and then a half jump, and I'm going to put my dot and label it. Now, if I did it as 5 half jumps, that means I'm jumping halfway across the squares 5 times. So 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves, 5 halves. You end up in the exact same position as if you converted it. So either method, whichever works the best for you, use it. So let's look at A. Let me clear my screen. All right, A is at 1/2 and 3 halves. Both are positive, so that means remember this is X and that's Y. And remember X always goes left and right, and Y goes up and down. So starting at 0, I'm gonna go 1/2 jump to the right since it's positive. And then 3 halves is positive, so that means I'm going up 3 half jumps, 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves. Now notice, since both of them were a half, that it is located in the center of boxes. Also note that 3 halves I could have rewritten as 1 and 1/2. And if you look at your grid, I could have gone 1 whole jump and then a half jump, and I would have landed at the exact same spot. All right, let's look at P. -4 halves. Now I could count 4 half jumps, or I could convert it, either way. So let's start with 4 half jumps. This is my X, it's negative, so that means I go left. So 4 half jumps, 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves, 4 halves. And then my Y value says I don't go anywhere, I stay put. And again, if I converted this number 4 halves into a different number, a different way to write it, that would simplify it down to just -2, which is where I stopped at. Now I want you to take about 15 seconds and I want you to do letter H. Okay, let's look at H and let's check it. So starting at 0, left, or I'm sorry, negative, that's my X, means to go left. Going left, 7 half jumps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then negative on my y says I'm going down, and I'm going 3 whole jumps and then a half jump. So 1 hole, 2 holes, 3 holes, and then a half. And I'm going to label that H. So check, did yours match and did you get the same answer as me? All right, number 2. Let's go ahead and label the coordinates. I'm going to start with C. Now, just like in my last video, I told you to put a colored marker or pencil, something on the dot, draw a line to your x-axis, draw a line to your y-axis. Now, point C, remember everything is always x and then y. So it touched my x-axis at -1, and then it was a half jump, so -1 hole and then a half jump. And it touched my y right here, which is only a half jump up, and it's up, so it's positive. Okay, so let's try letter D. Same thing, draw a line to your x-axis, draw a line to your y-axis. So my x-axis, it went 1, 2, 3 and a half jump. So when it's to the left, which means negative. And on my y-axis, it's 1 hole, 2 hole, and then a half jump down. So that also means it's negative. So I want you to take a couple seconds now and figure out what letter E is. All right, let's try E. So again, put your marker on E, draw a line to your x-axis, and draw a line to your y. Well, you're already on your y. So let's put my coordinates. So it touched my x-axis right here at 0. And my dot is on top of my y-axis, and it's at 1, 2 and a half jumps down. So it's negative. All right, and then lastly, it says if 3 points represented the vertices of a parallelogram, where should the 4th vertex be? Or where should it be on the graph? So we're looking for point F to complete this parallelogram. Now let's connect our dots in alphabetical order. So C, D, E. And so I know my 4th dot's probably going to be over here somewhere. I just need to figure out exactly where. So what I would do is figure out how far apart this section is, and that'll tell you how far apart it is at the top, because parallelograms have parallel sides of the same length. So if I can count, D and E is 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3 jumps, and then a half jump or a baby jump. So it's 3 and a half jumps away. So if I do the same thing at the top, well, right here is my half jump. So now I just need 3 whole ones. 1, 2, 3. And it's got to be even. They're at the same height, so it's got to be at the same height. Therefore, this point right here is my answer. Now, to help me figure out what that is, do like what we just got through doing. Draw a line to your x-axis, draw a line to your y-axis, and that'll tell you that coordinate. So that coordinate, remember x, y, it touched my x at 2, and it touched my y at a half jump, so that means at a half. Now keep in mind, you may see these written, I'm writing them all as fractions, but you may see it written like that because 1/2 is the same thing as 0.5. All right, number 3 says 4 points are graphed on the grid. Which ordered pair does not appear to be represented by one of these points? So what I would do is look at the points on the graph. Take your marker and draw a line. X is at 1 1/2. or in this case, it looks like it would be 0.5, and y is at 2. So 1.5, 2, 1.5, 2. And I would check the others as well. This one is at 2.5 or 2.5 and 3, and that's a -3. 2.5, -3. This one here is going to be at -1 on the x, and looks like -1 and then a half jump, so -1.5 on the y. Kind of looks like this one, but that one looks backwards. So it's not quite. And then let's check the fourth one. X-axis is at -4, y-axis is at 1/2, and there's that one. So the correct answer should have been C, because it says which one does not appear. Now make sure as I do this, you are following along in your notebook. All right, number 4 says the coordinate grid shows point R, S, T, and U, which point best represents the ordered pair, -2.5 and -3. Now remember, it goes X and then Y. So here's one thing I could do. I would go -2 and then 1/2 or 0.5 and draw a line where that touches. So hopefully yours is a little straighter than mine. And then go to -3 on my y. So 1, 2, 3, and draw a line where that one touches. Where my orange and blue line crisscross, well, there's your answer. Point T. Also, you could have looked at this as, I know that this is negative, so I had to be in quadrant 3. So remember 1, 2, 3, 4. So you knew it had to be one of those two. So that's one way you can very easily rule out things that just aren't reasonable, that it just doesn't make sense. So I always start by trying to rule out any points that you possibly can before I actually do any math. And the last one, number 5, says point Z is graphed on the coordinate grid. Point A will be graphed 3 units away. Which ordered pair could represent the location of point A? Now, on homework and on tests, be careful. A lot of times, this section here will be above the graph, and this question will be below the graph. And a lot of times, y'all skip that and don't even read it. And then you're confused because you look at this and it's like, where's point A? It doesn't make sense. So you just figure out where point Z is and circle that one. Guys, please make sure you read everything carefully. Now, it says which ordered pair could represent point A, and it said it's 3 units away. So we're going to jump 3 units. So 1, 2, 3. And that coordinate is a half jump to the right and a full jump up. And then I can go 1, since it started in the half, 1 full jump would be from half to half. Then 2, 3. And that coordinate would be at 3.5 to the right and 1, 2 full jumps down. And then I can do the same thing here, 1, 2, 3. This one is at 1/2 to the right, -5 down. And 1, again, it started in the half, 2, 3. That would be 2.5 to the right, or to the left, I'm sorry, so it's negative, and 2 down. So at this point, just compare your numbers. So 2.5 to the right or left, that's not 2.5, that's not 2.5, that's not 2.5, that's not 2. So it's not that one. A half jump, there's a half, not a half, not a half, not a half, and -5, well, that's not -5, so it's not that one. 3.5. Well, here's 3.5. And then it said -2. That does not say -2. So it's not that one. This one says 1/2, which is at C, and then 1, which is at 1. C is my answer. Notice I jumped in all 4 directions. Also notice that I did not go at an angle. Oops. I did not go at an angle. I didn't go any way other than straight up, straight down, straight left, or straight right. And that is because on a grid, you can only move up, down, left, and right. So make sure you're very, very careful of that. One more thing just to point out, let's say point Z was graphed, say here. Let's pretend. If it were graphed there, would I be able to jump 3 units up? No, because I'm out of graph. Would I be able to jump 3 units to the left? Again, no, because I'm off the grid. I ran out of graph. You will should never see answer choices that you don't see on the grid. If it's off the grid, it won't be an answer choice. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at these problems. And you do have an extra grid at the bottom of your page if you choose to use it to practice with, or if you and your partner at your table want to practice graphing some halves and things like that.